We are AM 1240 and FM 92.7. Now, I've got questions about the operation in the north sky of the county today. We are having some treatment, it seems, in the Dayton, Cleveland area. Usually over Chattanooga, the stripes begin early in the morning to the east of the city, as if to block the rise of the morning sun upon Chattanooga, which is a dark spot on the map. Chattanooga is a heat source for, if you look down at a satellite, it would have a lot of heat emanating from it, being full of rooftops and parks and roads and parking lots. This is David Tulis, and we are looking at further the story about geoengineering, or solar radiation management, as it's called. I call it sky striping. Some people call it chemtrailing. It's a very aggressive usage to call it that. And in fact, there's one writer, Peter Kirby, who has that in the title of his 2016 edition. It's called Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project. And that is the argument that he makes. They're tracing in his 2016 book that first had its first iteration in 2012, the story of the people and the science that have given us this program that is, you might say, an enigma wrapped in a mystery. The U.S. geoengineering program to dim the sun is one of its clear effects. There are other effects that may be unintended. It could be that if we are having an increase in global temperatures, it is perhaps because of the trapping of heat in the millions and millions of square miles of artificial cloud cover laid up in high altitudes and also in the troposphere by military and contract jets. Peter Kirby, you live in San Rafael in Marin County, California. You're a married man. You're 46 years old. You get a lot of your bread. You put bread on the table as a taxi driver. And you've thought for a long time and began researching this question as a private party, as an enthusiast, you might say, for the story some years ago. What does my listener see in the sky that should tell him that something is amiss? That what he's seeing in the way of stripes, Peter Kirby, are not just contrails, but are something else, something better, perhaps.
Yes. Hi. Hello, everybody in the Chattanooga area. I am Peter Kirby. Thank you so much, David, for having me on. Yes, there are things that one can observe with their own eyes in the sky to tell them that something is amiss. There is the observations of the lines in the sky. You may see these lines appear all over the sky one day, and then the next day see none of them, even though the weather is identical. Another thing is you may see, and I've seen video of this, you may see a jet airplane flying along with a chemtrail. I'm sorry, I'm going to use that word. A chemtrail coming out of one engine, but not coming out of the other. How does that happen? You may see planes at the similar altitude, big, jet airplanes at a similar altitude flying along. One is emitting one is emitting a chemtrail, and the other one is not. How does that happen? And there are some other things you can look to as well. I'm seeing in the area where I live a depletion of marine layers. There's a certain neighborhood in San Francisco called the Sunset District, which before chemtrails saw maybe 5 to 10 sunny days a year. Now it's sunny most days. And, there used to be so much more fog in San Francisco, and now fog seems to be quite a rare commodity. We're also, personally, once somebody cleans out their senses, in other words, cleans out their nasal passage so that they can smell again, because we're under assault in our nasal passages and our senses are being dulled, and we're not, most of us, if we don't take precautions, cannot smell the chemtrails. I can smell it and I can taste it when they spray. I get, of course, the symptoms, the dryness in the nasal passage and the shortness of breath. but I also get a taste, a sort of ashy metallic taste, and I can smell the same smell. So yes, these are observations that tell you that there's something wrong here.
Well, also, if we look at these trails, some of them I noticed Peter Kirby, author of Chemtrails Exposed and New Manhattan Project, they have a clear dripping. Some look like they're dripping as if the emission of the material is the sort of cakey, and as it comes out, it coagulates and has drip, a very systemic line of drip balls, if you will, at the bottom of the trail. And I've also noticed others where you have a sense of bleeding. The trail bleeds, and you can see individual streaks of particulate drifting away in a skein or a cloth of white from the main body of the emission. Again, suggesting not water, but a solid substance of some kind, though very, very light, very airy, like talcum powder, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the chemtrails dissipate in different ways. I am asserting that for the most part, they are dumping a standardized spray upon us. I am also asserting that they've been spraying us with whatever they want, whenever they want for 70 years. But I think most of the time when you see a sky stripe, as you say, it is a standardized coal fly ash, which I'm sure we're going to get into later. But, as far as how it disperses in the sky, there may be lots of factors involved there, such as wind and temperature and humidity and things. It's probably what you're seeing is the same spray, just dissipating in different ways.
Well, thinking Peter Kirby of how the listener can touch this story, I think we have a kind of doubt, a skepticism barrier, a healthy skepticism barrier to cross for the listener perhaps today. I would say also that there's an extraordinary brilliance in the sun today. I started noticing it about 4 years ago, just really about a year before I started covering this in 2014. And that is that the evening sky sometimes is extraordinarily, it's blinding. The sun is blinding, and that's because the sun is bigger in the sky than it would be if there were not a dome, if you will, of material, some kind of material in the sky that refracts the light and makes the sun a larger orb than it would be otherwise. So there's that. I would put that down as a bullet point for evidences of sky treatment. And then also, could we not mention the fact that often when you have a good treatment over a city, the sky near the end of the process, maybe 8 or 9 hours into it, the sky is all hazed over, and the sun is just kind of the thin disk through the covering.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they create a haze. This is another thing. I never used to see so many hazes when I was a kid. I mean, I'm up here in the San Francisco Bay Area with probably the best air quality in the nation. And, growing up, it was a storm would clear out, and then, man, it would be crystal clear. I mean, you could see for, 40 miles, up towards the curvature of the earth and stuff. I mean, we had great air quality up here. Now we go through these periods. Thank God they're not spraying us recently, but we go through these periods where they just create this artificial haze. All of a sudden you can barely see something that's 20 miles away, like a mountain or something, and it's totally unnatural. And I think people need to look out for that. Why is it so hazy? Why can we not see stuff anymore? I mean, this project's only been around for 20 years. I'm appealing to people who have a memory going back more than 20 years of, what types of weather patterns are predominant in your area. And all these weather patterns, they've all been screwed with.
Well, screwed with is a rough way of putting intervention. On days where there's some days over Chattanooga and Helena County, Peter Kirby, we have what clearly are visitations. There is simply, there seem to be hundreds of jet flights over the city, not the regular patterns. No one pays any attention to the regular patterns of jet flights. We can see the red jet in the evening over Chattanooga. Sometimes I see one at about 7 o'clock in the evening. It's always in the same place. And so we don't really notice those. But on days where we have what effectively is a visitation, there are dozens and dozens of irregular, heterodox, if you will, heterodox crossings of jet traffic that are not routine. And then, of course, deposited is this white cloud. And the clouds are different. There you have sometimes weather systems behind the weather. You have large cumulus bodies, and yet behind them somehow there is a blank white, as if somehow the artist hadn't finished his painting. And there's a clear system of weather behind or above even the weather, and sometimes dozens of miles off, even over Dunlap, even over the plateau between Chattanooga and an ancient meteor strike zone that's called the Sequatchie Valley. There, even there, you have clouds, and behind them, even dozens of miles away, is this blank stare of a white sky.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I forgot to mention just now, but it is in my book. The planes are flying on irregular paths. I mean, where are the plane spotters? You know, I always figured growing up that there's all these people that are really into aviation, and they know all the planes and they know the routes, and they got their binoculars out and all this stuff. I mean, we need those guys to be noting, coming out and saying publicly that there's like way too much jet traffic that's not along regular paths. I mean, the vast majority of jet traffic should be along commuter routes, you know, and we should see occasionally, you know, like a military plane, you know, going off on some strange route or something. You know, when you're talking big jumbo jet aircraft, I mean, these things are supposed to be, we're supposed to know exactly where these things are and exactly what's going on there. I mean, we even have, we have satellite photos of, you know, the sky stripes, you know, covering certain areas of the nation. And the famous one that was released by one of our government agencies, I think the EPA, had a picture of, you know, your area, the southwest, or excuse me, the southeast of America, just covered in cross hatches, you know, with these sky stripes. And it's you know, it looks like hashtags and just rows upon rows, all parallel. I mean, these are not regular flight paths. I mean, we even have William Thomas in his book, Chemtrails Confirmed, came out in 2004. He was way ahead of his time. He even has an air traffic controller in the Edmonton area noting on his radar that these planes are coming out of Alaska, coming down to over their area and spraying, and then heading on down into the contiguous 48. And he says he can identify the chemtrails on the radar. I mean, you know, there's just so much evidence for this. It boggles the mind.
Well, I think when we talk about this topic, I have a real problem, Peter Kirby, and that is making it relevant to the theme of my program, which is local economy and the free market. I always say, well, it's a national story. It's really impenetrable. We can't find out behind the security screen of it what's happening. I got back from 2015 FOIA request details of flights over 2 days in October, November of that year, and there were breathtaking visitations of jet traffic. It seemed like hundreds of overflights of the city on each day, about 2 weeks apart, and it was indecipherable, pages and pages of numbers and data that I could do nothing with. So that may have been a concession of some kind that I cannot interpret, but it is
drowning in evidence. We're drowning in evidence. There's far too much of it.
Well, I can't, and so I can't offer that as proof of anything. And so the listener says, well, what can I do about it? How do you answer that question? I'm not asking you to say, call your congressman. That just seems futile and hopeless. Are there, what can the listener do, let's say, in protecting his health? If he can't deal with it directly, since there's no political response to it, apparently, what can he do, or what can he do for his family, would you suppose, Peter Kirby?
Yes, I think the first line of defense is air purification. Although it may cost you a few $100s, you can pick up a couple of air purifiers for your house, put them in different rooms, and I've found that on days when they spray, I'll be having my breathing difficulties when I'm out doing my job, and then I get back to the house and close all the windows and turn up the air purifiers, and my breathing problems go away. So yeah, there are two basic types of air purifiers you're looking at. You don't want anything less than a HEPA air purifier, and there are good HEPAs and bad HEPAs. You want the best HEPA you can get. At Home Depot, you could probably pay $150 for a good HEPA air purifier with filters. If you want to step it up to the next level and take out the really small particles, the nanoparticles, you have to step up to something called an electrostatic air purifier. I bought mine off of Amazon, and I'm quite pleased with it. That was upwards of $200. I think that's the first line of defense. I think humidifiers are a good thing as well, because the stuff that they're spraying, it's called hygroscopic. It collects water on it. It serves as a nucleant, as in traditional weather modification. Little particles will suck the water out of the air and have the water deposit upon them, and it denies. This process denies us our atmospheric water. Often denies us our atmospheric water here down in the troposphere where we're breathing the air. And if you have a humidifier, that's going to replenish the humidity in the air, and I think you'll do quite well for it. There are supplements you can take. Yesterday, you and I were talking about the chelating supplements. These are supplements that draw heavy metals, such as aluminum, which is known to be in the spray, out of your body. You can do cleanses. I've done 3 liver and gallbladder cleanses from the great Dr. Group. I'm sure over there in the flyover country listening to Alex Jones like I do every single day. Everybody probably knows who Dr. Group is, but the liver and gallbladder cleanses work. I've passed thousands of liver and gallbladder stones, and these are, deposits of toxins in your body. So it's just good to get rid of that. You're constantly being assaulted with these toxins, and they're going into your body and lodging in different places, and you need to get them out of there. There's things that you can do if you have a lot of money. This would be the absolute best way to deal with chemtrails. Okay, there are things called passive houses. These are airtight houses. You can look this up on the internet. And if you had an airtight house with a central electrostatic air purification system, well, then you could be inside your house and be completely unaffected by the chemtrails. And I would love to find some of these geoengineers, such as Ken Caldera or David Keith, living in one of these passive houses. I think that would be quite an interesting thing. But those are the things that come off the top of my head.
Well, you make 2 points, Peter Kirby, author of Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project, and that is the fact that geoengineering dries the air. Now, that may have happened for 4 years over California. California was subjected to intense sky striping project, according to Dane Wigington and others. And geoengineering dries out the air because the particles, which are a nanometer size, 100 nanometers size, I think, the air that has water in it has so many particles in it that no water will condensate. So on a particle, if there were fewer particles in the air, the water would condensate on the ones that were there, and then you would have rainfall. But if there are too many particles, Peter Kirby, as I understand it, rain won't fall, and an entire rain system can be made just to dissipate and go away if it's treated properly by jet traffic.
Yes, and I believe in the process of dissipating it and making it go away, they actually probably spread it out, and I think they're collecting that water on these little particles, and they're able to move the particles. I know you didn't want to get into the whole technical aspect of it, but this is essential to the understanding of this project. They're using electromagnetic energy from ground-based antennas to move the particles around in the sky. So, you get the little particles with some water on them. Maybe you have them spread out so that it kills the storm, and then you can move masses of these particles. They have these particles I've found, which are probably coal fly ash, which is a famous world famous scientist position here. I'm running with it, and there's iron little bits of iron in the coal fly ash. And I think that what they're doing is enabling the iron in the coal fly ash along with other things. But the iron is susceptible to this electromagnetic energy. And I believe this electromagnetic energy controls controls the coal fly ash particle, mostly through the manipulation of the iron.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Peter Kirby on the phone. He's the author of Chemtrails Exposed, a new Manhattan project. It is a vast system, a vast enterprise that the government is operating behind the veil of state secrecy to alter the weather, not for your benefit.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. The Tennessee